Right, welcome to CCPI News. I'm Lawyer Henderson. Welcome to Lawyer Henderson TV. Today we're talking about a young teenager who was convicted for 12 years for allegedly having raped a white girl, but he is saying that he never had sexual intercourse with the young woman. Now there is a petition to try to get him free. I want to read from blacknews.com is reporting that black college student sentenced to 12 years in prison for kissing a white girl. This was in, his name is Albert Wilson. And the story broke on April the 10th, 2019. Lawrence, Kansas. Albert N. Wilson, a former University of Kansas student, has been sentenced to 12 years in prison and a lifetime of probation after being convicted by an all-white jury of raping a white teen girl. But he says that they only kissed and never had sex. In September 2016, then the 20-year-old Wilson was with a friend he went to a bar with. He met a girl who was 17 years old at the time. She was visiting her cousin who attended KU. Both underage. Wilson used a friend's ID to get into a bar while the young woman and her cousin were carded. Both parties agreed that they met a popular college sports college spot called Jayhawk Cafe while they were dancing. Wilson then kissed the girl while he was allegedly lifting up her skirt without knowing each other's age. Wilson invited the girl to his place, which was only walking distance from the bar. The young woman claimed Wilson raped her at his place. On the other hand, Wilson told a different story. He testified that the girl didn't seem intoxicated at all. He admitted that they were kissed and they engaged in other sexual acts, but he said they never had sexual intercourse. According to the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, Wilson's DNA was found on the girl's chest through his saliva when he kissed her there. No DNA from seminal fluid was found. Swabs were collected from the girl after she went to a local hospital the day after the incident. Photos of her inner thigh also showed bruises in the area. During the trial, Wilson initially claimed he couldn't remember the details of what happened that night, but he felt that the police were against him at the time because of his race. I don't know how to explain this, but I come from a different background than you, ma'am, said Wilson to Judge Sally Porcorny, who is white. I just felt like the police were against me at that point, end quote. Forrest Lowry, Wilson's court-appointed lawyer, claimed that his client is not someone who would do allegations against him, They claim that his client is not someone who would do the allegations against him. Wilson, who is now 23 years old, was a former Wichita Southside High School football player and an associate's degree holder who aspires to be a sports journalist. He had no criminal record. It was a chance at meeting. Obviously, my client misread what was going on, Larry said in court. If there was ever a case that deserved a departure of any kind, I think this is it, end quote, from the attorney. After 6 hours of deliberation, the all-white jury decided to convict Wilson of rape and gave him the reported lowest end of what is called by the Kansas sentencing guidelines of rape, end quote. The verdict has caused an uproar, with many people asking multiple questions about the woman's story, especially since a surveillance video showed the girl was consenting as they engaged with one another, and they were only at Wilson's place for 5 minutes before returning to the bar. Some are also questioning Wilson's lengthy sentence compared to other convicted rapists. A website called Free Albert Wilson has been created by the supporters to find out the truth behind the case. Now, I just read to you the Black News Report. Now, this is Albert Wilson, this young man. I looked at the report, seeing that he came into the courtroom and he began to cry. And one of the things that, if I had a son, I don't have children, is that I would try to teach them that going with certain types of young girls to bars or to any type of clubs is just pretty much, you got to be able to understand how you can easily get accused of rape. And unfortunately, this Albert Wilson was caught up in the moment. He had this thing about wanting to have sex with this white girl, knowing that, there's a lot of white girls, there's a lot of white girls who's going to accuse a black man of rape. It's just, that's how they get attention from the white society, is they're going to accuse a black man of rape. So they were not even at the house for 5 minutes. So how is this girl able to say that they did anything? They only said he performed sexual acts or what have you. And, they were both underage, So you have a situation where the laws are being used on young black men because this is what the white society wants. They are very arrogant and pretty much making sure that black men are in jail. This is how this society has been able to get away with its oppression. And black men have to finally stand up and say, this is enough. We're not taking this no more. Just like we did with the Kobe Bryant and Gayle King situation, the interview that she did. Black celebrities calling out Gayle King. We have to also worry about our young sons, because our young sons are being put in position and being accused of rape. They're being accused of everything, and these white supremacists come around and they're giving them 10, 15, 20 years in prison. And so therefore what we have to understand is that they were only at the house for 5 minutes, as the report said. Okay? And there was no sexual intercourse according to him. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to say, well, we got saliva. Okay, we got DNA from your saliva, meaning that you swabbed the mouth and only got some type of, saliva or some type of DNA from probably from performing oral sex. But there was no rape here in the sense of what rape is described. And so they seen that the girl was consenting. Now, the age of consent, I think, is 17 in the state, in Kansas. I don't know. But if it's not, then, the young man probably have a problem. But if the age of consent is 16 and 17, and there is evidence that she did consent to this particular sexual relationship, then Albert is not guilty in a sense. And I have to go back and look at the age of consent. And in fact, let me see if I can pull up the age of consent here in Kansas. I mean, not in here, but in Kansas. The age of consent. See, this is why we have to teach our sons here not to be messing around with some of these young white girls, because these young white girls will turn on you real quick. Not all, but most of them. See, the age of consent in Kansas, it seemed like it's 16 years old. So the girl in this case, because I'm not going to call her a victim, the girl in this case was 17. So she was pretty much able to consent, okay? And the young man was 20 at the time. He's now 23, and I'm thinking that she's now 21. So he's been in jail, I think, for 3 years now. And it says that the age of consent in Kansas is 16 years old. So they're saying that Kansas does not have a close in age exemption. Close in age exemption, commonly known as Romeo and Juliet law, are put in place to prevent the prosecution of individuals who engage in consensual sexual activity when both participants are significantly close to age to each other and both of the partners are below the age of consent. That didn't happen here. They both was over the age of consent. So now that's the reason why the prosecutors went for the rape situation, because they knew that the girl, this was not statutory rape because the age of consent being 16, which is at this point she was 17. And so that's what the situation is. And so you got a lot of young black boys and black men who are meeting up with these white girls, and they pretty much is having sexual relationships. And I'm not only going to just bring white girls, because some black girls do accuse, but it's rare. They sometimes do accuse black men of rape. So this whole ideal now about saying that black men rape you, that's what society want us to believe. They want us to believe that black men have a rape culture. That's not true. Okay, this girl lied. She pretty much went willfully to his home. She pretty much was there. They were pretty much 5 minutes. They did some type of sexual situation of oral sex or what have you, probably. And then they went back to the bar. So we knew, well, we don't know, but we still have this situation in this culture in 2020 where black men have been accused by young white girls or women in general of rape, and it's been a lie. There's no evidence. This was an all-white jury as well, and the court-appointed attorney, he didn't have a attorney that could fight. We don't know how much evidence that was produced. And so at some point you're going to have to start recording these women, because at some point they'll say yeah, and then when they get in front of their white parents, they're going to say, no, he forced me daddy, and all that stuff. And so you got to talk with your young sons about some of these women, because some of these girls out here, they'll